Hello, my name is Dave Phillips and I represent DP Examiner LLC. This slide presentation will cover the joint tenancy with full rights of survivorship. It's going to be a fun one. When dealing with the concurrent estates, you're talking about having more than one owner. This is referred to as fragmentation of ownership. So we'd have owner 1 plus owner 2 equaling co-owners. And I reference this frequently. I talk about the fragmentation element because you can't have fragmentation of ownership with only one owner. The family of concurrent estates, we have the tenancy in common, the joint tenancy, the tenancy by the entirety, and the joint tenancy with full rights of survivorship. Now, in dealing with estates, you want to be able to understand how they're created and conversely how they're destroyed. Whether you're a layperson just trying to get a grip on these estates or you're a title examiner, I think when you understand how they're created and when you understand how they're destroyed, that will let you know the power of each of these estates and how they're dealt with in the chain of title. So here we have O as being the owner, conveys to A and B as joint tenants with full rights of survivorship. Now the words "with full rights of survivorship" must appear in the body of the grantee line. Remember, the traditional joint tenancy would be O to A and B as joint tenants. This additional language is what distinguishes this estate from the traditional joint tenancy. And with this conveyance, A and B have full rights to exclusive ownership upon surviving the other. That's the critical point to remember when I go forward on these slides, talking about the complexity when one of the co-tenants tries to convey to a third party. Dealing with apportionment, similar to the joint tenancy and the tenancy by the entirety, the tenants in a joint tenancy with full rights of survivorship cannot apportion interests. So here we have O to A and B as joint tenants with full rights of survivorship. A and B own the whole. They own 100% together. A and B are in the circle, and if you can just picture that in your head as being a part of the same element, they are not free to apportion. Now, when you're dealing with the death of a co-tenant in this tenancy, it's really as simple as it gets, and it functions identically to the joint tenancy. Here we have the original owners, A and B, as joint tenants with full rights of survivorship. Subsequently, A passes away. How does A's death affect the state of title? Well, B would survive to the interest of A, and this is the survivorship element of this estate that is very attractive and powerful. So after A's death, the new state of title would be B as survivor of A, B's deceased joint tenant. Now, when you have a conveyance by a co-tenant, this is where things get a bit tricky in this estate. Remember, co-owners of this estate, the joint tenancy with full rights of survivorship, have full rights to exclusive ownership upon surviving the other. So I've created this training exercise that I think will help to break this estate down and help you to understand how it goes forward with one co-tenant conveying. We have the original owners, A and B, as joint tenants with full rights of survivorship. I would suggest rewriting this to show joint life estate with contingent remainder held by A and B. So we've rewritten the joint life estate with contingent remainder held by A and B. Now, what do we mean by these? The joint life estate, that means that A and B have the right to ownership of the property during their lifetime. The contingent remainder says that it's contingent upon one surviving the other. If A were to survive B, A would own the entire estate fee simple absolute. Conversely, if B survived A, B would own the fee simple absolute. So that's the contingent element, contingent remainder. Now subsequently, let's say that A conveys to C. So we can rewrite the new state of title as the joint life estate with contingent remainder held by B and a joint life estate with contingent remainder held by C. And again, do not forget the right of survivorship shared by A and B in the original grant. A has conveyed its life estate with contingent remainder to C. But C's interest will now be measured as to the life of A. And this is the so-called life estate per autre vie, which means for the life of another. So C's fee simple interest is contingent upon A surviving B. You have to remember the original deed, the original creation of the right of survivorship was between A and B. So again, C's fee simple interest is contingent upon A surviving B. If A survives B, C will own in fee simple absolute. Again, if A survives B, C will own in fee simple absolute. Conversely, if B survives A, C's interest is destroyed and B owns in fee simple absolute. It's a heavy element of this estate right there. That's the hammer. You're considering the original grantees. Their lives continue to matter even if they convey an interest away. That is the original deal. The contingent remainder was ultimately and originally between A and B. So again, to reiterate, when A conveys to C, C's fee simple interest is contingent upon A surviving B. If A survives B, C will own in fee simple absolute. If B survives A, C's interest is destroyed and B owns in fee simple absolute. Imagine the surprise that C may have when they realize that their interest has been wiped out when they thought they had a fee simple ownership interest. Very powerful, very technical. So again, to summarize, this estate offers the benefit of the survivorship element. The full rights of survivorship is what distinguishes this from the traditional joint tenancy and makes it very, very tricky when you have a conveyance from the original co-tenant to a third party, creating the life estate per autre vie. Just try to remember when you've got this estate, you have to remember who the original grantees were, and then they stay in play as time goes on. Unless they all convey their interest away, you have to pay attention to who's passed away when and who's conveyed their interest to a third party. Now, these slide presentations have covered the basic or the concurrent estates in Michigan, but there are other forms of ownership that are very common. You have the living trust. There's the life estate with power to convey, the so-called ladybird deed, which I'll be doing a slideshow presentation on very soon because it's a very simple estate that a lot of people seem to get incredibly drastic results with because they overcomplicate it. The the life estate with power to convey has a contingent remainder element in it as well. That doesn't come into play until and unless, or it doesn't come into play unless the original grantees pass away without having conveyed the property. So I hope to clarify and make those things easier, go over the basics of the owning and living trust. And that's pretty much what you'll see in Michigan. You have a lot of joint tenancies, a lot of tenancies in common. Husband and wife zoning is tenants by the entirety. Living trusts in title. And a hot one now is the life estate with power to convey. But this right of survivorship is indeed very powerful. And I hope to see and speak to you all very soon. Thank you.